Ohio. I want to talk to you just a little bit about our university and some of the financial opportunities that are available here and in the U.S. and certainly hope to be able to answer some of your questions about study in the U.S. In general, and maybe about Miami in particular. Maybe, there we go. So in general, give you a little bit of background information about our institution. We're, like I said, Miami University in Ohio, which is a little confusing. We actually were started in 1809, so we're over 200 years old. I like to think of ourselves as the original Miami. We were functioning as a university before Florida was even a state in the United States. So we consider ourselves to be a mid-sized university, and that can have a pretty wide definition in the U.S. For us, that means we have a little bit less than 20,000 students. So mid-sized institution, but probably on the larger end of that, definitely with an undergraduate focus. We have, out of our almost 20,000 students, over 17,000 of them are bachelor's degree students, and they study in over 120 different majors. We also have a little over 2,000 master's and PhD students, and they study in our 50 master's programs or one of our 12 PhD programs. Our students come from all 50 states in the United States and from 91 different countries. We have great out-of-classroom experience as well, with over 600 different student organizations that our students can participate in. As I mentioned, with 17,000 students being undergraduate students, over 17,000 students being undergraduate students, our focus is really on teaching of bachelor's degree students. That's why we've been rated one of the top universities in the United States for each of the past 5 years, I believe, 5 or more years, for undergraduate teaching. And we've also been considered a public Ivy in the US, which means there's a list that has come out a number of years ago that kind of equates Miami's education as a public university on par with what you would find at the private Ivy institutions. So definite focus on undergraduate education here with selected graduate programs. So I'm going to walk you through briefly how things work in terms of how to apply to university at Miami University, or just how to apply to a university in the US in general. A lot of these things are going to be applicable no matter what university you apply to in the United States. All of our institutions are a little different. We don't have like the British system or others, one centralized application process for all US universities, but there are a lot of similarities between them. So I think what I can provide here in terms of some information should be helpful no matter where you choose to ultimately apply to school. First thing, every institution in the US is going to have some slightly different deadlines. For us, our final deadline to apply for the fall semester is February 1st. So if you're interested in starting in August 2020, the application deadline for that would be February 1st of 2020. For our spring semester, which just starts here next month in January, the application deadline for that has actually just passed. It was last weekend. It was December 1st. You'll see the priority consideration date of December 1st up at the top of this slide as well. While we do encourage students to apply early, students who apply by that final February 1st, 2020 application deadline will still receive full consideration for all of our programs, even our competitive programs like the business school or the creative arts, and also for all of our scholarships as well. Again, it's kind of just in terminology, you'll see a lot. Fall in the US generally means August or September start. Spring is a little misleading. It doesn't really mean the springtime. It means typically a January start. Those are the two times here that you can start as an international student. So what makes Miami University a little bit different? As I mentioned already, it's a main part of what we do is focused on undergraduate students. It's really teaching undergraduate students. Our students are engaged each year. We have over 2,000 students that are actively engaged in research with professors. So that's 2,000 undergraduate students that are doing research with faculty members, and many from their first year. We have a program called the First Year Research Experience, which really allows students to apply for and receive funding to do research projects even in their first year of university studies. And if your ultimate goal is to go on to graduate school and get a master's or PhD, that sort of experience is really, really important. Our faculty, like I said, they come to Miami University because they love to teach. Another thing that I think sets us apart is our study abroad opportunities. We're one of the top rated universities in the United States for a number of students who study outside of the US during their time here at Miami University. And that, excuse me, that's not only for our US students, but that's for our international students as well. Even though they're studying abroad by coming here, they can also study abroad even further by going to a third country. We have our campus actually in Luxembourg in Europe, and many of our international students will choose to spend a summer or a semester or even just a couple weeks studying there. Beyond that, you can study in business in Asia, study the health sciences in New Zealand. Really, the opportunities are limitless for study abroad. The big thing we have that I think sets us apart is really our scholarships for our international students. And I want to talk a lot more about that later. But for right now, I'm going to go back to a little bit about the application checklist. So I told you a little bit about the deadlines. The next one coming is February 1st for all of our students who wish to start in August of 2020. I should point out that that's an undergraduate deadline. So students who wish to come for a master's or PhD, those deadlines will be a little bit different. Those deadlines are going to vary based on the program that you apply to. Some of our programs, like a master's degree in accountancy, has a deadline as early as November. Some of our other programs have deadlines as late as March 1st for our master's programs. But for our bachelor's programs, the deadline's February 1st. So what do you need to do when you submit your application for admission? Right now, Miami University, we use the Common Application for our undergraduate students. The Common Application is an application that's used by hundreds of U.S. universities. So even though we don't have a centralized admission system, this is one application option that many universities use. So you can complete this application once and send it up to, I believe, I think 20 different universities, which is quite a lot. I think you probably should want to keep it at 10 or less personally, but the Common Application you can complete once and send it to multiple schools. So that's what we require. But in addition to that, the two most important things you're probably going to submit are going to be your high school transcripts. And those are going to be, that's the record of your academic performance starting with grade 9. Here in the Pakistan system, it's going to be your internal results for grades 9, 10, and 11. And then any external exams, your standard 10 exam results, and your standard 12 ones as well if you've completed that. If you're still completing grade 12 right now, you'd want to just send your internal results for 9, 10, and 11. And then your exam results for grade 10 as well. If you're in an international school, you want to send still those internal results for 9, 10, and 11, but then the external exams that you've taken, such as your IGCSE exams or your AS exams or whatever one you've done. So it's going to be a combination typically of high school transcripts, internal marks, along with any external exam results that you've had. The other thing that we recommend, or actually I should say the other thing that we require is proof of English proficiency. A lot of students will meet this by taking the TOEFL or the IELTS. However, especially for our Pakistan students, there's a lot of alternate ways to meet our English proficiency requirement. For example, if you've done the IGCSE English exam and have gotten a grade of at least a C on that, you can certainly be exempted from the TOEFL or IELTS requirement. Further, if you've taken the SAT or ACT, which is not required but is strongly recommended, again, related to scholarships, but I'll get to that a little bit more later, we do recommend the SAT or ACT. If you can obtain a score, SAT evidence-based reading and writing score of at least 550, you would also be considered to have met our English proficiency requirement. So most of our Pakistan students actually meet the English proficiency requirement in one of those two ways. Either they've done O-levels or IGCSEs and done English, or they've taken the SAT and they've done at least a 550 on the evidence-based reading and writing section. Taken the ACT, which is a lot less common outside of the US, but we still do see it. You would need a 21 on the English section to be exempted from a TOEFL requirement. Beyond that, we do require one recommendation letter, and the recommendation letter typically comes from a counselor or a teacher, and that needs to be submitted along with your application. And then we also require some financial information, financial support form, a copy of the passport, and those things are going to be required really so that once a student's admitted, we can go ahead and do their visa paperwork, do their I-20. So once all of this stuff has been received, we do really pride ourselves, and most competitive universities are similar to this, on being comprehensive and holistic in our review process. What that means is that we look at everything you said. We look at your application. We look at all the parts to it. We look at the essay you've written. We look at the list of activities you've done, maybe some things you've been involved in during your time in high school. We look at also your recommendation letter, and then of course your transcripts and test scores are going to be important as well. Some of our programs are two-step for admission, and they have divisional consideration. For example, we have many, many more applicants for our School of Business than we have for our than they have available spaces. So along those lines, so admission into the business school is a two-step process. You first have to be admitted to the university, and then you're considered for admission to the business school. Now, from your end, as an applicant, that doesn't affect what you submit. You only apply once. But internally, we will evaluate your application for admission here in the admission office. If it's acceptable, then pass it on to the business school, which will then determine your status with the business school. Similarly, in our College of Creative Arts, many of those programs are going to have a separate requirement of either an audition or a portfolio or something else you must submit to be considered for admission into those specific programs. And those programs would be things like architecture, art, music, game design is a new major that's very excited to have. And that's also requires a portfolio or additional pieces to be admitted into that particular program. Just to give you an idea a little bit about who's been successful in being admitted to the university as an international student, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our fall 2019 applicants look like and how they fared. And I think if you're interested in any U.S. university, you can ask these sorts of questions on what the student profile looked like, so you can see, what your chances might be for admission into a competitive institution, and whether or not you'd be a good or strong candidate for admission. For fall 2019, we had applications again from 91 different countries. We had over almost 4,000 international student applications, and split fairly evenly between men and women, a little bit more females than males. Our average TOEFL score for the students who were accepted was about an 89. And our average SAT score for students that were accepted was about 1,300. That doesn't mean that everyone who had below 1,300 was not admitted. That was the average. So we had a lot of students that were higher than that. And then, of course, a lot of students that were lower than that were also offered admission. One thing that's Miami is proud of, and I think you're seeing this spread out among many other U.S. universities, is our tuition promise. Before you get into that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the cost of attending a school here in Miami. Of course, I'm sure many of you know that studying in the U.S. is not an inexpensive proposition. It's a pretty expensive option. You can see here for Miami, this was our tuition and fees. Housing, books, food, everything is kind of included on this chart. The total comes to about $56,000, and that's per year. So about $35,000 of that is actually tuition and fees, and then the rest are other expenses that you would expect to incur, such as housing, food, and the like. That's the bad news. The good news is that Miami University, as a public institution, is very fortunate to have a lot of scholarship options for our international undergraduate students, as well as for our international graduate students. In fact, the overwhelming majority of our international graduate students do not pay for their tuition. So that's a good thing. When I go through, you'll see there's 4 different scholarship programs here for our international undergraduate students. There's Merit Scholarship, International Education Scholarships, the Presidential Fellows Program, and then our You Are Welcome Here Scholarship. And all 4 of these I'll go into in a little bit more detail. Again, these are for our undergraduate students, and there's some other options for our graduate students, which I can talk about in addition to these. Our biggest scholarship program in Miami is for both our undergraduate and our graduate students, and I'm sorry, it's for both our U.S. and for our international students. It's our University Merit Scholarship Program. This program does require the SAT or ACT, so even though that's not a requirement for admission, that's why I strongly recommend that our students take the SAT or ACT, because it does qualify you for this scholarship program if you can obtain a score of 1230 or higher on the SAT or a score of 26 on the ACT. The minimum GPA requirement for the scholarship is a 3.5 in US terms. For a student from Pakistan, that's going to be about, if you're in the Pakistan system, that's about a B+ average if you're doing kind of the British system, or if you're in the Pakistan system, that would be, somewhere around 70% or so. So those are the 2 main requirements for this scholarship. There's no separate scholarship application, so if you apply for admission, submit your test scores, you'll automatically be considered for that. It says the applications must be submitted by December 1st, but actually that's kind of the priority deadline. We'll accept and consider students for this scholarship up through February 1st. And it's a guaranteed scholarship program. So you'll see here on this slide the variety of scholarships that are available as a merit scholarship programs and the guaranteed ranges. So a student, for example, who has a SAT score of 1300, which is our average for accepted students, and that GPA of 3.5, they're eligible as a non-Ohio resident, which our international students are, for a scholarship between, get back to that, for a scholarship between $9,000 and $15,000 per year. So that's what the merit scholarship is, and those are guaranteed. So if you know you have this test score and this GPA, you're guaranteed those amounts, or somewhere in that range. Another big scholarship program for our international students is our International Education Scholarship Program. Again, no separate application is required for this scholarship. It's awarded to students who will increase the diversity at Miami University. It also does not require the SAT or ACT. There's no minimum score required if you take it, or you don't even have to take it at all to be considered for this scholarship. You do need the equivalent of a minimum US GPA of about 3.0, which is kind of a B average, or about a 60 or higher if you're in the Pakistan system. Scholarships, international education scholarships, can range anywhere between $2,000 and $16,000 per year. I should mention that both these awards, the International Education Scholarship and the University Merit Scholarship, are renewable scholarships, so they're good for all 4 years that you're here. Again, we will consider applications for this scholarship, applications for admission that are submitted for this scholarship up through February 1st. This is a scholarship program here, the Presidential Fellows Program, PFB as we call it. Is our full 100% scholarship. Unfortunately, the deadline for this has already passed for students who want to be considered for this scholarship award for fall or August 2020. It is a full 100% scholarship award, but it does have a November 1st application deadline. And when I say it's 100%, it covers not only tuition and fees, but also housing and meals as well. As for our high ability students, there's about 15 students a year, excuse me, both U.S. and international, that are awarded this scholarship. Last year, we offered this scholarship to about 3 international students from around the world as well. So if you're a junior, you're not quite ready to go to school yet and it's something you're interested in for next year, I would definitely encourage you to consider it. Finally, we are part of the You Are Welcome Here Scholarship Program, which recognizes promising international students with vision for enhancing intercultural understanding. Each year, we award 2 annual renewable scholarships covering 50% of the cost of tuition. It's for our first-year international applicants that have demonstrated an interest in personal initiative in activities involving intercultural learning and exchange. So we actually have a deadline for this is coming up. It's December 15th. So if you applied for admission today, you can still apply for the You Are Welcome Here scholarship as well. I should say, in addition to this, or for all of these scholarships, the You Are Welcome Here scholarship, the University Merit Scholarships, and the International Education Scholarships, these are stackable. So many of our students who are awarded a University Merit Scholarship are also awarded an International Education Scholarship. And that will increase their overall scholarship award. In addition, our 2 students, for example, received the You Are Welcome Here scholarship last year, also received University Merit Scholarships and International Education Scholarships. So their overall scholarship award was actually much higher than 50% of the cost of tuition. The You Are Welcome Here scholarship itself covered that 50% of the cost of tuition, but then they were able to add other scholarships on it, on top of that. This is what I was talking about earlier. Many U.S. institutions have started this. Miami has done it a number of years ago, I believe about 3 or 4 years ago, which is our tuition promise. The tuition promise is a tuition guarantee program. Basically, whatever rate you would pay your first year here, you would be paying that same rate. It's guaranteed that it would be paid for. The same rate would apply for all 4 years that you are here. U.S. bachelor's degree programs are typically 4 years. And you would be guaranteed that your tuition rate would stay the same for that 4 years. What this means for you is it gives you a great level of predictability in terms of planning for your educational costs. It also means that whatever scholarship you receive will retain its full value while you're here. For example, if you're given a 50% scholarship or a let's say a $10,000 scholarship and $35,000 tuition, you can be guaranteed that your scholarship will stay the same and the tuition will stay the same. Whereas a lot of times, you would have a scholarship of $10,000, but each year the tuition would increase, meaning the relative value of your scholarship would actually decrease. A $10,000 scholarship and $35,000 tuition 1 year, but then the next year tuition increased to $37,000. Beyond that, it increased to $39,000. But your scholarship remained at $10,000. You'd see that your kind of the real value of that scholarship would actually be going down. In terms of graduate study, we do a lot of financial awards for our international graduate students. Most of them are the best, not the best, the ones with the largest value are our graduate assistantships, and those are, excuse me, scholarships which pay all of tuition and fees. They also provide a monthly stipend in exchange for students working for their academic department. They usually do research or they do some teaching. In exchange for that, they receive a monthly stipend or salary, and they don't pay tuition or fees. We also have grants and aid for our graduate students, and those don't include a stipend or salary, but they do provide a tuition waiver. So most of our international graduate students are on one of those 2 scholarship awards. I think 80% of our international graduate students don't pay tuition because they receive one of those awards. So for our graduate students, I always like to say that the trick is really to get admitted. Once you're admitted, they do a really good job of finding ways to help you pay for your education, but it is very competitive for graduate admission into those 50 master's programs and 12 PhD programs. That's actually, I usually have it's about a half hour to get through my presentation, so that's what I have for you today in terms of just some general information about Miami University and some information about studying or applying for study in the U.S. in You can find my contact information here. WhatsApp, email, Facebook, however you want to get in touch with us. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. I think with that, I would love to either through the chat feature or however answer some questions that anyone might have. I've certainly got some extra time to do that if that would be helpful. So thank you again for listening, and I hope to hear from a lot of you soon.
Hi, Aaron. Could I just ask on behalf of the potential graduate students listening? So you mentioned that the SAT, there are SAT scores that can kind of waive a TOEFL requirement. Is there an
Correct.
equivalent GRE score that would also do that?
That's a great question. There actually is not. For our students who are coming for graduate studies from Pakistan, some of our programs, most of our programs require the GRE. Some do not, but I'm not aware of any program that will accept the GRE score in place of the TOEFL or IELTS. So for our graduate students, typically they're required to have both tests actually.
I was also wondering, since there are certain exceptions made, and you seem fairly knowledgeable about the way that a Pakistani education, the various ones available here, can translate to your university. What programs are most popular with Pakistani students?
That's a great question. I think right now what I'm seeing for our students from Pakistan is most of them are actually drawn to the our College of Engineering and Computing. So we see in that division, our biggest program is mechanical engineering. So we see some interest there. We see a lot of interest in computer science. And then bioengineering is a fast growing program there as well. The other one where we see interest from Pakistan students quite a bit is our business school. Has a very good reputation, does pretty well in some of the rankings. So I think that attracts our Pakistan students as well, particularly things like finance and business economics. I would say.
If it's okay with you, while we wait for our attendees to ask you questions, I thought I'd just introduce myself and Education USA.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah. Hi guys. I'm Merat. I'm the one that's been emailing you. I'm from Education USA. I am an Education USA advisor. We are your official source of information regarding higher education in the US. We also have advising services for both undergraduate and graduate applications that are entirely free of cost. We aid you across our 5 steps of um, uh, towards US education. We have offices that are located in Islamabad, Karachi, and Lahore, but are also remotely available for students from all over Pakistan. Our emails are very easy to find. You go on USEFP, and it's KHI at USEFP. For us, and similarly for Islamabad, ISB, and similarly for Lahore, LHR. And yeah, so you can reach out to us regarding any part of your application, and we are always available to help you.
Thank you.